You pull into a gas station at 10 at night. Price on the sign, $3.29 a gallon. You don't need gas, so you drive past. Next morning, same station, same pump, same everything. Price on the sign, $3.59. 30 cents. Overnight. Nothing happened that you saw. No new tax got passed while you were asleep. No war broke out on the news. The gas itself, sitting in that same underground tank, didn't physically change at all between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m.
So what actually happened? Because something did. Gas doesn't get more expensive by accident, and it definitely doesn't happen because the owner of your local station woke up feeling greedy. There's a real, traceable mechanism behind that number changing overnight. And once you understand it, you'll never look at a gas station price sign the same way again.
Let's clear out the obvious guesses first, because you've definitely made at least one of them. Guess number 1, it's a new tax. Almost never true for an overnight jump. Gas taxes are set by law. They don't just quietly change on a random Tuesday night. And when they do change, it's announced well in advance, not discovered by surprise at the pump. Guess number 2. Something happened with a war or conflict somewhere in the world. Sometimes, sure, genuine geopolitical events can move oil prices, and we'll get to exactly how, but that's not what's behind most overnight jumps. Most nights, nothing newsworthy happened at all. No headline, no breaking story, just a number on a sign that's different than it was 12 hours earlier.
Guess number 3, the one everyone secretly believes. The station owner is just gouging you because they can. This one's almost backwards. Individual gas station owners, the actual person who owns that one location, typically make only a few cents per gallon in pure profit, often less than the change in your pocket. They are, in a very real sense, one of the smallest players in this entire chain, and blaming them for a 30-cent swing is a bit like blaming the cashier for the price of a sofa.
So if it's not a new tax, not usually a war, and not your local owner deciding to get rich off you overnight, what is it?
Here's the part almost nobody outside the industry has ever heard explained clearly, and it's genuinely not complicated once you see it laid out.
Gasoline goes through roughly 4 stops before it reaches your tank. Crude oil gets pulled out of the ground somewhere in the world. It gets shipped or piped to a refinery, where it's turned into actual gasoline. That gasoline gets sold at what's called the wholesale price, sometimes referred to as the rack price. This is the price a distributor pays to fill up their tanker truck at the terminal. And then that truck delivers it to your local station, which sells it to you at the retail price you see on the sign.
The number that actually moves overnight, almost every single time, is that third one, the wholesale rack price. And here's the part that surprises people. That number can update multiple times a day, not once a week, not once a month, multiple times in a single day, based on constantly shifting supply and demand in the wholesale market, refinery output, regional pipeline capacity, how much gasoline is currently sitting in storage, and yes, sometimes global crude oil prices too.
So picture what actually happens at your local station. The owner isn't looking at a calendar and deciding to raise prices out of nowhere. They're looking at what it's going to cost them to refill their tanks the next time the delivery truck shows up. Because gas stations don't set today's price based on what they paid for the gas already sitting in the ground beneath them. They set it based on what it's going to cost to replace that gas. That's the detail that changes everything about how this works. If the wholesale price jumped yesterday afternoon and your station's tanks are getting refilled tomorrow, the owner has a choice. Raise the price now to make sure they can actually afford to replace their inventory when the truck arrives, or wait, sell at the old price, and potentially lose money on every gallon once that more expensive truck shows up. Almost every station chooses to raise the price immediately because waiting is a bet against their own survival. That's not greed.
That's just basic inventory math applied to a product where the replacement cost can jump substantially overnight.
Real quick, if this is the kind of thing you enjoy having explained clearly, that's genuinely most of what we do here. Subscribing to Compound Economy means you catch the next one, and it actually helps a lot on our end. Okay, this next part is genuinely one of the most well-documented and most quietly frustrating patterns in all of retail pricing.
Economists actually have a name for this pattern because it's been studied enough times to earn one: rocket and feather. Prices go up like a rocket, they come down like a feather. Here's what that means in practice. When the wholesale price jumps, retail gas prices at the pump tend to follow almost immediately, often within a day or two, sometimes faster. But when the wholesale price drops back down, retail prices at the pump tend to fall much more slowly, sometimes taking a week or two to fully catch up, sometimes longer.
This isn't a conspiracy or some secret agreement between stations. It comes down to a genuinely simple, well-documented behavioral fact. When prices are rising, customers are hyper-aware and price-sensitive, actively comparing stations, noticing every jump, ready to drive an extra block to save a few cents. But when prices are falling, that same vigilance relaxes. People don't cross-shop nearly as aggressively for a price that's already dropping in their favor. And gas stations, operating on genuinely thin margins most of the time, have every incentive to hold on to a slightly elevated price for a few extra days if customers aren't actively punishing them for it.
Multiply that pattern across an entire market of competing stations, and you get exactly what you've probably noticed without having a name for it. The jump feels instant, and the relief feels like it takes forever.
There's a second reason the coming down side moves slower too, and it connects directly back to that replacement cost idea from the last chapter. A station that just paid a higher wholesale price to refill its tanks isn't going to instantly drop its retail price the moment the wholesale market ticks down, because they've still got that expensive gas sitting in the ground. They need to sell through the gas they already paid a premium for before it makes financial sense to drop the price at the pump. So even in a market with zero bad intentions anywhere in the chain, you'd still see exactly this rocket and feather pattern show up, purely from ordinary business logic playing out at scale.
You've probably noticed something else too. Two gas stations across the street from each other can sometimes differ by 30 or 40 cents a gallon, even though they're getting gasoline from largely the same regional supply. A big piece of this comes down to when each station last refilled its tanks and at what wholesale price they locked in. A station that filled up yesterday, right before a wholesale spike, is sitting on cheaper gas than the station across the street that happened to refill this morning, right after the spike hit. Same neighborhood, same demand, completely different cost basis sitting in the ground.
Branding matters too. Stations tied to a major national brand often operate under supply contracts that lock in pricing relationships with a specific refiner, which can move independently of a totally unbranded independent station buying wholesale gas on the open spot market wherever it's cheapest that week. That independent station has more flexibility to chase the lowest price, which can mean bigger swings in both directions, cheaper on a good week, pricier on a bad one.
And then there's plain old local competition. A station sitting alone on a highway exit with no competitor for 5 miles has far less pressure to keep prices razor thin than a station sandwiched between 3 others at a busy intersection, all watching each other's signs and adjusting within hours, sometimes within minutes, of a competitor's price change. That's not collusion, it's the opposite. It's aggressive competition, each one afraid of losing customers to the station next door, which is exactly what tends to keep prices lower in dense clusters and higher in isolated spots.
Here's a number that surprises almost everyone the first time they hear it. The actual station owner, the person whose name might be on the lease, who's dealing with the pumps and the credit card machines and the overnight shift, usually makes only a handful of cents per gallon in pure profit. In a lot of cases, the gas itself is close to a break-even product for them, or even a loss leader.
And the real money at that location comes from the convenience store attached to it. The coffee, the snacks, the cigarettes, the lottery tickets.
The bigger profit, when there is one, tends to sit further up the chain, with the refiners who convert crude oil into gasoline and can see genuinely large swings in their margins depending on the gap between crude oil costs and wholesale gasoline prices, a gap the industry actually calls the crack spread. When that spread widens, meaning gasoline sells for a lot more than the crude oil cost to make it, refiners can post very large profits, even while your local station owner is still making close to the same few cents per gallon they always have.
This is worth sitting with for a second, because it reframes the whole picture. The overnight jump you saw on the sign wasn't your neighborhood station owner deciding to take more from you. It was that owner reacting, almost defensively, to a wholesale cost that shifted somewhere further up a chain they don't control. A chain where the real profit swings are happening at a level most drivers never see or think about.
None of this means you're powerless, even if you can't control crude oil markets or refinery margins. A few things genuinely help. Filling up earlier in the week tends to beat filling up right before a weekend, since demand spikes and price-watching data across the industry consistently show weekend prices running slightly higher on average.
Using a fuel price comparison app before you drive somewhere unfamiliar can save you real money, since, as you now know, two stations a few blocks apart can be running on completely different wholesale cost bases at the exact same moment. And if you've got some flexibility in when you fill up, keeping an eye on regional wholesale price trends, which several free tools track publicly, can help you time a fill up for a lower point in that rocket and feather cycle, rather than right after a spike.
None of that fixes the underlying system, but now at least you know it's a system. A chain of replacement costs, competitive pressure, and genuinely thin margins stacked on top of each other. And not a mystery, and not your local station owner deciding out of nowhere to make your night worse. So next time you drive past that sign, and the numbers jumped 30 cents since yesterday, you'll actually know what happened in between. If you found this useful, subscribe to Compound Economy.